Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the 2024 Senate elections on the forecast from The Economist. And as of right now, the perfect defense Democrats need to hold the Senate is looking pretty shaky as they are not favored at all. Republicans are expected to take back control. But before we get started with this forecast from The Economist, make sure you guys are subscribed. Click the bell so you don't miss out on my content. Press the like button, share this video. Don't forget, if you are interested, we have memberships. You can find the link to that in the description section. So as of right now, Republicans are favored with a 70% chance of taking back control of the Senate. 70 in 100% times to the Democrats, 30% chance. 30 out of 100, as you can see right here. And the numbers have stayed relatively the same over the past 7 days or week, as you can see on your screen right here. And Republicans are currently projected to get 51 seats to the Democrats' 49, according to The Economist. Now, in my opinion, this is slightly underestimating Republicans, as I do have them getting more than 51 at 52 seats. Now, this forecast has Ohio going to Sherrod Brown narrowly. In my opinion, it's going to go to Bernie Moreno with Montana, giving them 52 seats instead of the 51 that this forecast has. So as of right now, Jackie Rosen from the state of Nevada, let's take a look at some of these margins, is favored by 8 percentage points, a likely margin. Now, it is true Nevada tends to love Democratic senators. Meanwhile, they love Republican governors. Now, not by this much of 8 points. I think that's severely underestimating Samuel Brown. Now, she's going to win, but not that by that much. It's going to be extremely closer than that. And Ruben Gallego in Arizona. Arizona right now is going to Donald Trump, according to 538 RCP and The Economist as well, but they suggest a huge ticket split, which I just don't see. In the future, we're going to see less ticket splitting going on. And as of now, Ruben Gallego is defeating Kari Lake by 7 points. Now, I know Lake is pretty bad, but 7, I think, is overestimating the Democrats. And then in Pennsylvania, Bob Casey is expected to win by 5 points. Majority of polls, even the most left-leaning ones, suggest it's going to be closer than 5 points. Maybe decided by 1 to 2, or maybe even 3 points at best for Bob Casey. I don't think it's going to be 5 for him. I think it's going to be closer than that. And as for Wisconsin, same thing goes for Tammy Baldwin, another juggernaut from the Rust Belt. Bob Casey and Tammy Baldwin are electoral juggernauts from the Rust Belt states, and she's favored by 5% over her opponent, Eric Hovde, who has raised a lot of money. He is dumping a lot of money. He's pretty wealthy, but obviously he's not popular in this state, and I just don't see how Tammy Baldwin could possibly lose. She never does. She always wins, but I think 5 points is slightly overestimating her. If I had to make a guess with the margin, I would say probably somewhere in between 3 or closer to 4 percentage points. And as for Michigan, the Democrats are not running an incumbent. Alyssa Slotkin is not an incumbent, and she's not popular at all as the Democrat. And Mike Rogers on the Republican side is also not popular whatsoever. So this race is still going to go to the Democrats, to Alyssa Slotkin, and by 4% according to the Economist forecast. And I think the Republican Party of Michigan and their ground game is just an utter disaster. I think one time they actually almost went bankrupt in this state. So Michigan is not going to go red in the Senate. Now, in the presidential for Donald Trump, I think it very well can. And as for Ohio, like I mentioned earlier, they have Sherrod Brown narrowly the favored by just 1 percentage point. I think that's going to overestimate him, as Ohio always overestimates Democratic support for the Senate, even in 2022, J.D. Vance won by more than what they originally suggested. So I do think Republicans will win Ohio, and they will get 52 seats instead of the 51 that this forecast gives them with the majority. And then you have Nebraska, which you would think that this state's not going to be close, right? But the Democrats chose to run an independent to make this race closer, because obviously they know if they run a Democrat, it's not going to work out. So they ran an independent, in Dan Osborne, who is polling neck and neck, but still he is the underdog, and Deb Fischer is going to win this state by 4 points by a lean margin according to this forecast. And in Montana, they suggest that the Democratic Senator Jon Tester is going to lose to Tim Sheehy. Now, similar to Sherrod Brown from Ohio, Jon Tester is pretty much a strong Democratic candidate, because keep in mind, Ohio and Montana both are very, very red Republican states, and they both have Democratic senators. So considering that those states are very red, meanwhile the senators are Democrats, really proves to you that they are really strong candidates, but it's not going to be enough for either of them to win, in my opinion. And then you have the state of Florida, in which Rick Scott's favored to win by 5 points. I think that's slightly underestimating him. And then you have Texas, in which this state could be actually pretty close, and Democrats, time and time again, keep hoping they can possibly flip the state or at least keep it competitive. In 2018, Ted Cruz only won by 1 to 2 percentage points over Beto O'Rourke. And in 2020, Democrats hoped they can make it close on the presidential level, and it wasn't. Trump won it by 5.5. And in 2022, Democrats thought the same thing again, where they can make Texas closer, possibly even flip it. That's literally their dreams of flipping Texas, because if they do that, there's no pathway for Republicans to win ever in the future. And it just ended up exploding in their faces, and Greg Abbott won by double digits. So I do think that Ted Cruz is pretty much a weak candidate, and he's going up against Colin Allred, who I think is not really obviously a strong candidate, but I do think he's underrated. Not enough for him to obviously win this state, but I do think it could be decided within under 5 points. But as of right now, that's the margin according to the forecast from The Economist. Now we take a look at the probability ratings and the likelihood for each of these candidates and the hotly contested Senate races. Let's begin with Nevada. Jackie Rosen has a 90% chance of winning re-election, defeating Samuel Brown. So she is more than likely going to win her race for re-election. Ruben Gallego also has a 90% chance, and he's not even an incumbent, by the way, which is extremely good for a Democrat in the state of Arizona over Kari Lake. And then Ted Cruz has an 80% chance of defeating Colin Allred. And then, as for Ohio, Sherrod Brown has just a 53% chance, this is basically a toss-up, of defeating Bernie Moreno. So Ohio's basically a tie at this point. And then as for Montana, Tim Sheehy has a 73% chance of defeating the incumbent Democrat Jon Tester. And then when you know that when you have a 73% chance for a non-incumbent to defeat an incumbent, that goes to show you that it's not looking good for Jon Tester in that state. And then you have Wisconsin, which Tammy Baldwin also has an 80% chance of winning this state. Alyssa Slotkin, who is not an incumbent, has a 78% chance of winning this state, defeating Mike Rogers. You have Pennsylvania, in which Bob Casey has a 79% chance of defeating David McCormick. I think it's closer than that. A lot of polls suggest it could be decided within just a couple percentage points. So that's where we're at with these percentages. There are 16 competitive races, as you can see right here, and Republicans have the majority of 51 to the Democrats 49. Like I mentioned earlier, I disagree. I think it would be 52 to 48 for the Republicans. Now, they have a 70% chance of winning to the Democrats 30%. So that's pretty much it with this forecast from The Economist. Let me know if you agree with it or disagree with it in the comment section down below, and why. One last final reminder is to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss all my content, press the like button, share this video. We have memberships. Don't forget, you can find a link to that in the description section if you are interested. And also, I went over the presidential forecast from The Economist in a prior video, in which they have Trump up by 276 electoral votes. And as far as the House goes, they actually have Democrats barely winning it at exactly 218 seats, which is exactly what they need to flip back the majority. So it's almost a trifecta for the GOP, but not quite there yet. They need the House, but it's basically a toss-up at this point. So overall, 2024 is looking quite good for the Republicans. That's pretty much it. Thank you everyone for watching.